The Emperor Maximilian had called the Diet of Augsburg not only to place before the German princes the Pope's request to finance a crusade, but also to influence the electors to vote for his grandson Charles as the next Holy Roman Emperor. The German electors numbered 7, and their votes were for sale, except for that of Frederick the Wise, who could never be bribed. By the time Maximilian arrived in Augsburg, 5 of the 7 electors had promised to vote for Charles. But promises are made of air, and in the end the emperor knew that the ancient crown of Charlemagne would go to the highest bidder. Francis I was the other leading candidate. Francis based his claim on the fact that he was ruler of France, the original kingdom of the first emperor Charlemagne, who had been king of the Franks. Louise of Savoy, Francis's doting mother, was ready to spend her whole fortune in bribing the electors, for the added joy of seeing her darling head of the Empire of Christendom. Pope Leo also favored Francis I as being better suited to lead a crusade against the Turks than the young Charles, who had never set foot on a battlefield. As to the crusade, Maximilian, still the medieval knight in his imagination, had thought of leading the crusade himself. He had conceived a grandiose scheme in which not only would the Turks be driven out of Europe, but Constantinople would be recaptured, Jerusalem liberated, and the entire Holy Land freed from the domination of the Muslims. What a dream! The practical, hard-headed German princes failed to share it. Nor did they intend to furnish soldiers and levy enormous taxes on themselves to pay for any crusade whatsoever. As Maximilian had predicted, Luther's courageous stand against the sale of indulgences had had its effect upon the princes. Even if they should raise the money, they saw no more reason to think it would be used for a crusade than that all the money raised for the building of St. Peter's would be used for the purpose for which it was intended. Maximilian was disappointed about the crusade, but he still had high hopes for the election. He kept writing to Charles in Spain to send more ducats, not to be so stingy, to keep up with Francis in bribing the electors. The final vote was to be taken at the next meeting of the Diet, which was to be held at Frankfurt in June. The emperor would not be there. In January 1519, Maximilian died quite suddenly of a stroke, but in a happy manner, doing something he enjoyed most, hunting the fleet-footed chamois in the Tyrol mountains. What people remembered most about this joyous hunter was his unfailing charm and personality. The citizens of Augsburg remembered how he called himself a burgher of their city, the merriest town in Europe. Merchant princes like the Fuggers spoke of how he would lay aside formality when he came to their homes and dance with the rest of the company. Peasants remembered how, passing them on a country road, he would stop his horse and visit with them, asking about their villages, their crops, and their families. Kaiser Maxi, they called him. Soldiers remembered how in one campaign he had talked with 7 foreign commanders, each in his own language, speaking Latin, Italian, French, Spanish, English, Walloon, Flemish, and German. Musicians, writers, artists, and scholars recalled the encouragement he had given them. He wrote a book about himself, which he called The Dangers and Adventures of the Valiant Knight Sir Terdank. This was an allegorical poem describing his adventures on the way to marry Mary of Burgundy, a blonde-haired knight in silver armor who came to the rescue of his lady love. At the Diet of Augsburg, Albrecht Dürer, who was the court painter, made his well-known portrait of the emperor. On it he wrote, "This is Kaiser Maximilian, whom I, Albrecht Dürer, portrayed at Augsburg in his little room high up in the palace." After the Kaiser's death, Albrecht Dürer finished a spectacular woodcut the size of a billboard, which Maximilian had conceived and ordered. Here the emperor is shown in a triumphal procession riding in his car of state, accompanied by all the virtues in the form of lovely ladies crowning him with wreaths of honor. And so we shall remember him, the last knight of the old order, the final rider in the gorgeous pageant of the Middle Ages.